Hello, this is Coach Mike from WinningStockCoach.com. Going to start out with our market overview for the week ahead, which will begin July 21st, 2014. Was an interesting week last week in the markets. Pretty strong week. Thursday came along. We had the Malaysian airline plane that was shot down. Israel, their invasion of Gaza, caused Thursday to be a big down day. But ironically, with the markets and how they are right now and their resiliency, come Friday, it seemed like Thursday's news was old news. And Friday put in a phenomenal day to really close us green for the week. After Thursday looked like things weren't going to be too pretty. As far as that goes, last week we talked about the weekly closing price 1962.11 on the S&P 500. That's where we wanted to stay above. That's our SPX chart. Thursday it looked like we might give it up, but that's why we talked about the weekly close. Now, one thing I would look for here, just because of how the markets have been overall, is even though you'll see on my chart a shorter term target 1993.76, the 2027.03 is, I think, what you'd be trading for new long positions, and not necessarily, by the way, in the S&P 500. Remember, we use the indices to determine our probability of winning trades on the charts that follow the indices. So what I would really get at here is I would be watching for a cross above that prior high close, the 1985.59, and play this like a consolidation range break. And for right now, any current longs that you may be in, let's continue to use that 1962.11 for a weekly close as our support/stop out point. Over now to the DJI chart. That's our Dow Jones Industrial Average. I've had a couple targets on here for the last couple weeks that we are slowly approaching. 17,209.51 and 17,306.26. Those are short-term targets. They're really close together as well, but those are short-term targets I've kind of been watching with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But I do have the long-term overall target, 17,934.86. I've said for a while I really doubt it sees it, but every time I say I doubt it sees it, the markets find reason to go up. You have to trade what the charts tell you and not what you feel about them. That usually has people missing everything when they try to introduce common sense into the stock market. Sadly, that's the reality. Technical traders, you're really best to understand where your support and resistance points are and trade accordingly to them. With the DJI, a couple weeks back we had another range break, and you see the horizontal line here on my chart. The value of that, 16,947.08. That would be my support area right now for the DJI, that I would be following for DJI stocks, and corresponding stops. The biggest DJI chart or stock there is, Visa, is going to be reporting their earnings this week, so that could, I believe, have a decent effect on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We've seen last week Goldman Sachs, IBM, which was kind of weird. I actually liked IBM's earnings report, but then it fell, more than likely because it had run up so much. All in all, what I do see, and this is kind of troubling for me. Even though the summertime typically brings the lower volume, if you look at the bottom of my chart where I have the volume bars, even if I run about an average from last summer, you see that this summer we are well below that on the average. It is troubling in a way because many people would argue that volume is a major supporter of your price. And if we make big runs without the volume to support it, eventually we could make a bigger fall because of not having that volume to support the price move. So, that's a bit of an argument to be factoring in. That's why it's really, really important right now, I believe, to be trading with your range breaks, constantly moving up your stops, not giving back a lot of the gains. You have to be willing to give back some for the potential to make more. But having a plan in place that is an evolving plan that protects you is something that's going to be very, very important. Over to the RUT, the Russell 2000 Small Cap Index. We'd been covering this for a while, and it made the exact move I had predicted in the videos. It's begun pulling back from that. Right now, from where we closed up the week, even though Thursday had taken it below, Friday brought it back above, we're right in that 50% retracement area from that prior move. So the direction up or down this coming week could have a large impact on the small caps. I would even venture to say that on an up move, small caps again probably have the largest upside potential, but we want to validate that bounce move with a positive move from the support point of that retracement area, because otherwise the just guessing and try to pick the bottom of everything many times leads to lots of stop outs. Headed over now to the COMP chart. This is our Nasdaq composite chart. We talked about this last week, and to be honest, since sending out last week's video, you can see by the candle, not a lot happened. It did close slightly above the week before, but it also kind of had a bad day there with a big fall. So with the COMP, I'm going to recommend we stay with that same game plan we had going into last week, which was essentially the support level of 43.3622 and looking for momentum movement on this retest with that as our support / stop out area again. Big earnings week this week. Some of the big name stocks that it can be big momentum movers, some of the high options volume stocks, generally some of the more popular names that people just think of off the top of their head are reporting this week. We saw Google report Thursday evening, did pretty good, ran up above $600. It was a great earnings report. I had some time to really dig into it this weekend. I thought Google did really good. We're kind of finishing up the financial sector this week. As far as the banks go, SunTrust and Synovus are going to be reporting early. SunTrust early AM tomorrow, or Monday, I mean. And then Synovus on Tuesday. Visa's later in the week, which is the biggest Dow Jones Industrial Average stock. But we're really getting into the technology names this week. We had INTC and IBM and Google and a few others, but we've got some that have been momentum names over the past year and a half, and even some that are just more popular, many would say cult stocks, that will be reporting this week. Not going to go through all of them that are reporting, but some of the larger names to be watching for that could actually have an effect on the day-to-day movement in the markets. Popular restaurant stock Chipotle, CMG, is going to report Monday after hours. Netflix, NFLX, will be reporting Monday after hours. A kind of a big momentum name over the last year and a half, DuPont, DD, is going to report Tuesday AM. Coca-Cola is going to report Tuesday AM. I'm very interested actually this week in Lockheed Martin, LMT, their Tuesday morning earnings. Moving over to Tuesday afternoon, Broadcom, which has been a big momentum play over this past year, Microsoft, ISRG, Juniper, JNPR, and don't forget Apple, AAPL, reporting Tuesday after hours. As we get into Wednesday AM, a little known stock that's become a lot more popular. I've been trading it for a long time, but BEAV going to report Wednesday morning. I have a good interest in that. DAL, Delta Airlines, I'm actually long in Delta, so I'm interested in that personally. Wednesday morning, BIIB, a biotech stock. We heard Janet Yellen this past week talk about how the biotech seemed to be overvalued, and we saw some drops in it. Well, BIIB, big name biotech stock, reporting their earnings Wednesday morning. Boeing, BA, Northrop Grumman, NOC, two I'm very interested in Wednesday morning, and Dow Chemicals as well, DOW. Wednesday afternoon, little known stock, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Facebook. It's going to be very interesting to see what Facebook does with their earnings. A year ago was their first earnings beat, and they ran from 26 to 36 overnight, and subsequently up to $72 and change before a pullback in March that was seen market-wide through the Nasdaq. Qualcomm, QCOM, is going to be reporting Wednesday afternoon. TripAdvisor, TRIP. Thursday morning, another airline stock, AAL, American Airlines. That's one I'm very heavily interested in, and JetBlue as well. And we're also going to see Southwest Airlines, Caterpillar, 3M, General Motors, Ford. And I'm really interested in seeing General Motors and Ford's earnings reports, because you get all these recalls and all this negative news, the stocks keep going up and up and up and up and up, and we've been getting it for a few months. So I'm really interested in seeing the financial effect seen by those. But more important for Thursday morning, at least in my most humble opinion, are stocks that aren't necessarily as popular. MHO, PHM, DHI, and there's a few others, but home builders. It was actually the same quarter last year we saw DR Horton, DHI, beat the earnings estimates by 50%. It was expected that they saw 30 cents per share. They saw 42 cents per share, and the stock gapped down $2 on severely lowered guidance. I'm very, very interested to see the home builders in general Thursday morning, because I think that could have a definite impact on our market. And then Thursday afternoon, a few bigger name momentum plays, and really getting into the kind of cult stocks as well. And when I say cult stocks, it's not saying anything horrible. I'm long in a couple cult stocks, but those are the big momentum plays that are running for no reason other than people like it. It has no fundamental reason to be priced where it's at. The price to earnings ratios are ridiculous. Amazon, I'm long in Amazon, and it's the first one I would tell you is probably got the most ridiculous valuation of any stock that I regularly trade. Pandora is going to be reporting Thursday afternoon. Pandora is a fun little momentum stock that I've traded a lot personally. Baidu, BIDU, that's kind of the Chinese Google, and actually the CEO of Baidu is the developer of Google's search platform. Starbucks, SBUX, and then Visa, V. Very interesting Thursday afternoon to really kind of finish out the week I'm watching in earnings, and really having the potential to have a large effect on the market overall. So really what I'm kind of planning for myself, my own capital, my own investments in general, is because I'm long in some of the stocks that are reporting earnings. Obviously I have an interest in those earnings reports, and I also have an interest in how this week's earnings as a whole could affect the market overall. And I really believe that using this week almost as an indicator, if you can think of it as such, because of how heavy earnings are in some of the big name sectors, the more popularly traded sectors, we may get an idea with this week as we close on Friday for what to expect over the next 2 to 6 weeks in the markets in general. This is Coach Mike with WinningStockCoach.com. Really encouraging you this week to make sure you have a plan for your trades. Lots of stocks reporting earnings this week. Make sure you know if your stock is reporting earnings. Make sure you have a plan for your stock. There is no reason to hold a stock through negative times just because you're scared to sell it. Have a plan in place for your stock. Don't give back your gains, and best of luck to you. God bless.